on to Finance and HRC, Trustee Smith.
Thank you. Director Hanigan is making his way to the mic now to discuss the estimated property tax levy 2025.
Mayor Hardy, Clerk Pretty Perovich, trustees, Administrator Pegorski, and Attorney Welsh. This is always a tough presentation because this is the start where we start to levy taxes for 2025, collectible in 2026. As the board knows, taxes that are levied one year are not collected till the following year. It goes back to the Depression when property taxes were waived for a year. But anyway, this is the 2025 levy, and it's always a challenge. I know as elected officials, you've given us some directive on what you want on the direction of that, of our levy. I believe we've done that, and I'm going to try to go through this in relatively quick time because I think the board will generally be happy with the direction that the levy, or our proposed requested levy is going. Really, if you look at in your packets, I put this spreadsheet, but I asked Fabian to put it up here because I know there's a lot of numbers on here. The key numbers that the board has discretion are these two numbers. We call it the corporate levy. That's the number that's incorporated into our budget, pays for police, fire, public works, etc. And second, the street and bridge levy. If the board recalls, before the pandemic, a prior board had approved a $1 million levy. That was cut because of the pandemic with the concern is what was going to happen with our revenues. We have never gotten back to that $1 million levy. I'm proposing that as part of this levy that we get back to that number, which is this 980. You'll see, again, this is after Cook County applies what's called a loss factor. It basically has to do with an estimate from Cook County as to what we're actually going to collect because of foreclosures, sale of homes, etc. So that's where we're proposing the street levy to come out. The corporate levy is actually going to be less than the one in the current budget. The current budget projects that we'll collect about 5.3 million of this 5.5. So when the board looks at, can you scroll up a bit, Faye? To get that, yeah. So these are the two numbers that really the board has discretion over. And we're proposing that that number stays flat, meaning there won't be an increase in the two numbers that you as a board, Mayor Hardy, Brady Perovich, all have control over. Sorry, can you, I know you have to go.
Can you go left and right on the pair?
Right here. Okay, sorry. So the numbers for police pension, for fire pension, are going to both increase. We've increased those about $500,000 a year, and those are tied to a number that we get from an actuarial firm, which is called the Alternative Municipal Contribution. It's a number that we put in every year to fund fire and police. I've talked to the board about how what the plan is going forward as our debt obligations get paid off, replacing that debt service in future pension contributions. But really, you have very little, if any, control over this number, the 6.2 million that's going into police, and the little over 2 million going into fire. And then this is the retirement obligations for public works, the municipal staff, etc. It's about a combination of about $1 million. Bond and interest is a number that comes from our debt service. This is the last, our final debt payment will be in the fall. It's actually in fiscal year 27. But again, this is committed to years ago, and the board has little control over that. So again, the key to this levy, I think, and why this has been at the directive of this board and previous boards, is that this number is basically going to be flat. So you see it's a 0% increase, and I think it's, one other number I'd like to point out is, this is the total levy, again, that we originally assessed, it's this number here, $20,346,000. You'll see that our number, again, taking out the library, is actually $158,000 lower than where we were a year ago before Cook County applies their loss factors. So all in all, I think it's a flat levy. As I said, I think it's the directive that I think the board gave us. But from a budget standpoint, it's not going to hurt us too bad. Again, you never know how collections are going to come in, but this 5.57 number, the budget is 5.3. So I think it's not going to put us in any kind of issue with respect to our 26 or 27 budget. And that's really it. I'm happy to answer any questions. You've got my memo. I think it summarizes what we want to do. And again, we've got time. This has to be filed with Attorney Welch's office on December 30th. So as with all of our presentations, there's one other point I want to make. This number for pensions is the highest it will be. It could go lower based on what the state tells us the alternative municipal. And I'm waiting for that report to come from the state's actuaries. They have a different actuarial firm by the name of Foster & Foster. It's different than Lauterbach and Heyman, who's been here, and they evaluate our pension funds. So if the consolidated fund tells us that that number is going to be lower, then we might take that lower and put that number up in the corporate levy. But you'll see the corporate levy was cut by almost the exact number that we increased the street levy by. And you can see that in this little reconciliation down here.
Mr. Hanigan, for clarification, so we've always watched that levy number to be below 5%, right? Because we had a limit before we have to go to a different way of addressing it. And so the number on these sheets then, am I right in looking at that 3% is where we're at?
Yeah, so if you look to that point, Trustee Zeldenrust, that's this 2.3% number here.
Okay.
Okay, which is the total. So what do people actually see on their bills? It's this $20,707,000, including the library. And we compared that number, that's the 2.3%. Because that's where the confusion comes up, when people see things in their mailbox, and that's the bill they get, and what's the impact that this board has on that bill. But even still, combined with our pensions, library, and everything, it's going up 2.3%, which is still below the cost of living, which is the board knows was around 3%. From, in fact, I wrote it here, it was 3% from October of 24 to 25.
If Trustee Abbasi was here, he likes to make the comment that as a village board, we try to do our best to figure out how to keep that levy number down for the sake of our residents and to make sure that we don't do any kind of undue increase that puts a financial burden on the folks in Lansing. And anytime that we can come in under 3% for tax levy is good news. For us, that means that we're trying hard and that we're coming up with a good number that it's not rubber stamped at 4.5, every year, which years ago seems like it was.
Right, the 4.95%. It's called a Truth in Taxation meeting, and we will have one of those next year, because as I've said, this flip of this debt service payment to pensions will require a truth in taxation, just because of how I believe it will. I've talked to Matt a little bit about it, but it's just the way that the math works when you take this line item, which will go away, and put it into police and fire pension. I believe we're going to need to have a truth. There's nothing wrong with, by the way, having a truth in taxation meeting. You just need to have a hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.